tail off to fight through school, and I was the one staying up to 2 o'clock in the morning studying and still struggling. I'm a horrible test taker. Horrible test taker. I can know all the answers, but put that test in front of me and I bomb it, or I struggle. And I've never given up. A lot of you know my part of my story, my health challenges, bad relationships, things that could have knocked somebody down completely hardcore. But the thing is I believe that everything in life happens for a reason, and I also believe people are placed in our life for a reason. And I remember when I went through something major in my life, good relationship, gone bad, and I remember coming out feeling the weakest I've ever felt in my life. Like I was no good, I wasn't good enough. My insecurities got deeper, stronger, and I felt like I was not worthy of anything. Through that, I've met so many people in my life that helped me through all of that, helped me build my confidence, helped me. You just have to surround yourself with people that want better for you, just like they do for themselves. And if you do that, like, you're on top of the world when you have people that you surround yourself with that make you better. Like, they don't bring the bad out of you, they bring the good out of you. And from that point on, I fought like hell. I worked my tail off. I busted my butt. I was never a big dreamer, so to think, because my insecurities brought me down. But I remember when I was single for a long time, and my goal was to buy a house. I was tired of paying someone else's mortgage because, that's what you do when you rent. And I wanted to buy a house. And I wanted to buy a house that I could resell one day and make a profit off of. And so I worked and worked and worked and worked. I lost a lot of friends because a lot of my friends were still young. We were still young. And I was 25 years old when I built my first house. My family doesn't come from money. We always worked hard for what we had. And I did. I bought my first house at 25 years old. And that was the biggest accomplishment I felt I've ever done because I did it by myself. I did it by working my tail off for it. And I had that to show for it, And then I met Chris. My health challenges happened. I was diagnosed with some health challenges, and then I met Chris. I met Chris because of those health challenges. My friend sent me a friend suggestion for him. It was actually his cousin's wife, and I deleted it. I was like, I'm not interested. I don't want to meet a guy. Bye-bye. So I deleted her friend's suggestion for him. I was diagnosed 2 months later, and I went through one of the, I would say, darkest times of my life because things just got scarier, worse. I thought my life was crumbling underneath me, and I didn't know which way to turn. And I got a friend request from Chris. I was in a really, really, really bad place, and I got a friend request from Chris on Facebook, and I was like, oh, what the heck, I'm never gonna meet him. Except, one thing led to another, and 8 years later, we have 2 kids, we live in Colorado, and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me. And because of my health challenges, because I got so sick, I let him in. And he only knew me at that time. He knew me at my worst, and he accepted me. And through your vows, like through sickness and everything, he's been there. He was the one that let me lay on him and fall asleep for 3.5 hours on his lap while he had to pee. He is the best thing that has ever happened to me. So with that being said, know that no matter what, and I can go on forever with this story, but I want to cut it short so I don't bore you guys. Know that no matter how hard life gets, no matter how low you feel, know that deep down, in your heart, that there's a purpose, there's a reason for everything.
It began with a silence so unnerving that even seasoned investigators felt it settle inside their chests. Frederick, Colorado, was not the kind of place where nightmares grew. It was the kind of town where neighbors waved across driveways and parents filmed their children's first steps. But on August 13th, 2018, that illusion shattered. Shan'ann Watts, pregnant with her son Nico, vanished without a trace. Her daughters, Bella and Celeste, were gone as well. Their home, once filled with laughter and routine, now felt cold, almost hollow, as though something terrible had drained the life from it hours earlier. To the world, Chris Watts appeared frantic, pacing inside the house, calling out his wife's name. But beneath his performance lived a chilling truth no one yet understood. Behind his carefully staged worry, he knew precisely where Shan'ann was, because he was the one who placed her there. And while the town mounted search parties and friends flooded social media with pleas for information, Chris slept soundly in the same house where the murders took place, and later, slept only yards away from the grave he dug for her. For now, the community believed they were witnessing a desperate husband's nightmare. They did not know they were staring into the calm, blank eyes of a man who had already buried his family at a remote oil site and returned home as if nothing had changed. The search had begun. The lies had begun. And Chris Watts, quiet, expressionless, disturbingly composed, walked among the volunteers knowing exactly where Shannan's body lay beneath the dirt. This was the beginning of a darkness no one could imagine. If you want more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Dark Matters True Crime. Before the horror of that August morning, there were signs, soft, nearly invisible cracks forming beneath the surface of the Watts household. The kind that start as whispers and end as fractures. To neighbors, the family appeared stable, loving, almost idyllic. But inside the walls of that Frederick, Colorado home, a quiet tension had begun to settle, slowly, heavily, like dust rising after something breaks. Shan'ann Watts was a woman of determination, energy, and devotion. She was the anchor of her home, always in motion, always fighting for better.
Today, I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about myself, and it was just so much easier to share it live than via write it, because it would have been written forever. So over 10 years ago, I started losing a lot of my hair. I started having a lot of body aches, a lot of discomforts in my body, a lot of things that were limiting my everyday living. And over those course of many years, I was misdiagnosed. I was put on medication that was supposed to help me, and it didn't. So with that being said, 7 years ago, 2010, I went from me being a size 6, which was about 135 pounds for me, to going to a size 1/0, which was a good 20 pounds that I lost. And with losing all that weight in a matter of, I would say, 3 to 4 week period, I was also feeling extremely terrible, to the point where I did not want to get out of bed, literally didn't get out of bed for days. I finally drugged myself to the doctor's office and made them do all kinds of tests. I wanted to know what was wrong with me. A part of me was changing. I went from being super energetic, super happy, just an all-around happy person. I loved going out and doing things. I loved getting together with friends. I loved working. Sounds crazy, right? So anyway, fast forward about 2 weeks, which was the first week of May of 2010, when they diagnosed me with lupus. From there, I was lost. I had no idea what in the world lupus was. Of course, we turned to Google, and what's Google tell you? Google tells you you're gonna die. So in theory, I was freaking out. I was overreacting. I had all these things going on with me, and I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea. Hi, Heather. So at that time, I reached out to support groups on Facebook. I reached out to wherever I could, to the Lupus Foundation of North Carolina, who really helped me tremendously with support and information.
Chris Watts, however, was becoming a ghost inside his own life. Friends later described the shift in him as subtle but undeniable. The empty stare, the emotional distance, the unsettling calm that didn't match the strain beneath. Text messages, recorded later in discovery files, painted a chilling emotional gap. Shan'ann tried to reach her husband, to understand the cold silence replacing the warm man she had married. Chris drifted further into isolation, retreating into long workouts, long late-night phone sessions, and longer stretches of inexplicable detachment. What she felt as marital stress was, in reality, the awakening of something darker. During this period, Chris began an affair, a decision that would accelerate everything unraveling inside him. Investigators later pieced together the pattern. The lies, the secret meetings, the frantic balancing act of a double life. The kind of behavior that marks the beginning of an emotional descent, where empathy shrinks and ego grows monstrous. Yet even as he slipped away emotionally, Chris maintained the mask. Smiles for the neighbors, playful moments with the kids on camera, a gentle voice that betrayed nothing of the storm he was feeding within himself. The quiet was shifting, and something unimaginable was coming. If you want to continue uncovering the darkest corners of this case, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Dark Matters True Crime, where we reveal the truths hidden in shadow. Long before the world knew his name, the warning signs shimmered quietly beneath the surface of Chris Watts' carefully constructed life. To friends and neighbors, he was soft-spoken, gentle, even reserved. A man who rarely raised his voice and never seemed to express anger. But beneath that calm exterior lived a growing detachment no one could quite place. It was subtle at first, the kind of emotional withdrawal that slips past even the closest of observers. The summer of 2018 revealed cracks too deep to ignore. Shan'ann, carrying their unborn son, felt the shift more acutely than anyone. She confided to friends that Chris had changed, that the man she married had become distant, cold, and unreachable. Her texts showed a woman trying desperately to pull her family back together, yet feeling it slip further from her grasp each day. Meanwhile, Chris crafted a mask of normalcy so convincing that even Shan'ann struggled to understand what was unfolding. He lost weight, changed his appearance, and began communicating with an intensity that did not match his real life at home. While he smiled for photos and joined family outings, his mind drifted elsewhere, toward fantasies of escape, reinvention, and the secret affair he believed could offer him a new beginning. But the most chilling red flag was not his distance or lies. It was his silence. A silence so profound that it created its own gravity. A silence that signaled not just emotional retreat, but a mental separation from the people he once vowed to protect. The stage was set long before tragedy struck. The world simply didn't see it happening. To uncover more of the hidden truth behind this haunting case, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Dark Matters True Crime, where the darkest stories are brought into the light. The hours after the murders became a haunting void, an empty stretch of time where reality blurred with cold calculation. As the sun dipped behind the Colorado plains, Chris Watts drove toward the remote oil site known as Service 319. It was a place of wind, dust, and silence, far removed from the warmth of the home he had just destroyed. In the dim glow of his headlights, he carried Shan'ann's lifeless body across the rough terrain, each step echoing in the quiet night. Behind him, Bella and Celeste sat in the truck, unaware their father had already erased the future they were meant to have. The shallow grave Chris dug was not a resting place. It was an erasure, a desperate attempt to rewrite what he had done. He lowered Shan'ann into the earth, covering her with dirt and clay, burying not only her body but his guilt. And then, in the strangest, most chilling twist of the night, he lingered. Investigators would later describe the eerie stillness, the puzzling stretch of time he spent at the site, alone with the grave he created. For nearly an hour he remained there, walking, pacing, sitting, A man alone with the darkness he crafted, breathing the same air as the woman he had loved, then destroyed. Some would later say he stayed because he couldn't face going home. Others believe he was trying to convince himself it was real. But the darkest interpretation is that Chris felt a twisted calm in that lonely field, that he slept or drifted in and out beside the place where he buried Shan'ann and, finding momentary escape from the truth waiting beyond the horizon. But night always ends, and dawn reveals everything. His attempt to hide the crime would soon unravel, one clue at a time. If you want more chilling true crime stories, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Dark Matters True Crime, where the darkest truths come to light.
What's that?
Nothing on there.
You just have to
My camera.
the truck up to the drive.
Lay down.
Loaded my stuff up in my coolers, my water jugs, my book bag, my computers, some of the tools that I had from the toolbox. I knew I was going to have to do some pumping unit rubbers today. That's why I was out so far.
Is this on continually
Yep.
recording?
Yep. Well,
It's not, is it
any
motion or is it?
event,
Okay, so it's motion.
Any motion event that happens, but I get cars driving from this street, and this is him at 517.
I usually park out there on the side. I just want to get everything back in. Be easier, so lugging everything out there, all the tools that I had to bring in. What else can I do with this?
My detective just showed up, so he'll probably want to talk to you. He'd probably, like I said, he might have you call like the bank and see if there's any kind of activity.
Because if there was any sort of action out
I know
there,
his camera's
I
like,
would have got it.
like
Right.
we had issues the other week when people were stealing stuff out of like garages and stuff like that, and I had parked my truck
I
up
had
here.
to park right here.
Yeah. So someone,
see if
I could
anything
see where someone tried to jimmy with a flathead screwdriver over there, and it was just like,
But if any action would have happened, any cars or anything left your house, I would
yeah,
have
if it
got
would
it.
have been like right in that area, they should have picked. I mean,
Oh, it'll pick up anything coming down the street this way.
you know where that tree there too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Watch, I'll show you. There's nothing on here. We've already watched that one. But like, you'll see this car.
What's the craziest thing you have?
Actually, this car. You can see this car starting to drive down the street.
That ain't one.
Oh, look.
See what I'm saying? It picks up all the way down there.
He's next door.
Here we go.
I was talking about dispatcher. He'll be close for.
But yeah, we can pick up cars coming this way. I get anything coming this way and making this turn. So, and usually at night I pick up the cars pulling the ear trim. So, unless they pulled right here,
Yeah.
but I would have caught her walking out. Diesel.
Pretty good.
So yeah, I got nothing.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
No, that's it.
She's pregnant as well.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks. That's why her friend said it was low blood sugar.
And see, I've got her friend leaving out here at 2 in the morning, I think. So, my camera. Did you go check if anything was missing around your house?
There wasn't nothing. It was like all the old blankets and the winter was on the nightstand. Her phone was still there.
She dropped her off at 1 in the morning, right?
My doorbell said 1:48. She came in.
Okay.
Night fell over the remote oil field where the bodies of Shan'ann, Bella, and Celeste had been hidden. The machinery groaned in the distance, echoing through the open plains like a warning that no one heard. And somewhere in the hours after the murders, Chris Watts returned home to a house filled with silence. A silence created by his own hands. The world moved around him, unaware that a killer walked into his bedroom, climbed into bed, and slept just hours after burying his pregnant wife and discarding his daughters in crude oil tanks. In those early morning hours, his phone showed no signs of panic. No frantic calls. No remorse. Instead, his movements mimicked routine. He showered. He ate. He texted co-workers as if nothing had happened. Investigators would later notice how disturbingly calm he appeared on surveillance footage. Pacing, stretching, leaning against doorways. His mind seemed alien, operating without the emotional weight that should have crushed him. It was in that bed, in the home once filled with the voices of his family, that Chris lay down and slept. Under the same roof where the children once played. Beneath the same ceiling that had sheltered birthdays, holidays, and ordinary moments. He slept while Shan'ann's grave, shallow and hurried, rested miles away beneath the dirt of the oil site. He slept while the tanks that held his daughters swayed in the wind. This detail, the sleeping, became one of the most chilling aspects of the case. It suggested a darkness so stark, so hollow, that investigators struggled to comprehend it. How could someone sleep next to the echo of what he'd done? The question lingers still, unsettling and unanswered. If you want the truth behind the world's darkest crimes, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Dark Matters True Crime, where the shadows speak louder than words. The courtroom became a stage for the world's horror, yet it was also where careful orchestration began to emerge. Chris Watts had confessed, but the way the case was handled left questions that gnawed at investigators, the media, and the public alike. Rather than a full trial, Watts accepted a plea deal, life without parole. A decision that closed the door on many details that could have revealed the true extent of his actions and mindset. A trial would have forced transparency. Every forensic finding, every timeline, every shred of evidence would have been scrutinized under the harsh light of cross-examination. Instead, the prosecution presented a neat narrative: confession, plea, sentence. The world never saw the full gallery of disturbing facts. The psychological evaluations, the subtle inconsistencies in Chris's story, the deeper implications of how he conducted himself before, during, and after the murders. Even within the court records, choices about what was made public seemed deliberate. Certain witness statements were summarized. Some details of the crime scene, particularly the disposal of the children's bodies, were presented sparingly. Observers and legal analysts began to question why the DA appeared to control not just the courtroom, but the narrative itself. Could this careful curation have been intended to spare the public from further horror? Or was it a way to shield the intricacies of Chris Watts' chilling behavior from scrutiny? By avoiding a full trial, the opportunity to explore his psychological state, the planning of the murders, and his interactions with Shan'ann and the children in granular detail was lost. The public accepted a conclusion, but many questions remain unanswered. The Watts case reminds us that the courtroom can provide justice, but it does not always reveal the full darkness of human behavior. If you want to uncover more hidden truths behind infamous crimes, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Dark Matters True Crime, where we explore the chilling stories behind the headlines.
And so the court is going to accept this plea bargain under the circumstances. Words that come to mind when I hear the evidence in this case are a senseless crime and the viciousness of the crime. And equally aggravating in this court's determination is the despicable act of disposing of the bodies in the manner in which they were done in this case. I've been a judicial officer now for starting my 17th year, and I could objectively say that this is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen. And nothing less than a maximum sentence would be appropriate. And anything less than the maximum sentence would depreciate the seriousness of this offense. So the court is going to sentence Mr. Watts as follows. With regard to count number 1, murder in the first degree as it relates to Shan'ann Watts, the court is going to sentence you, sir, to a life sentence in the Colorado Department of Corrections, followed, with no possibility of parole. And that is going to run consecutively to all but counts 3 and 4. With regard to count 2, as it relates to murder in the first degree with Bella, the court is going to sentence you to life in the Colorado Department of Corrections with no possibility of parole. With regard to count number 3, the court is going to sentence you as it relates to Celeste to life in the Colorado Department of Corrections with no possibility of parole. With regard to counts 4 and 5 relating to Bella and Celeste as a different theory of first-degree murder, the court is going to sentence you to life in the Colorado Department of Corrections, and legally those sentences must run concurrently as a different theory of first-degree murder. Recognizing the unlawful termination of pregnancy for the unborn child that has been named Nico, the court absolutely believes that the maximum sentence of 48 years would be appropriate to run consecutive to the other charges, with an additional mandatory parole period of 3 years as set forth by statute. With regard to count number 7, as it relates to tampering with a deceased body, as well as counts 8 and 9, each a class 3 felony, the court is going to impose a maximum sentence of 12 years each for those counts to run consecutively to the other counts. The court is going to order that the statutory fees be paid and court costs. The court's going to grant the prosecution 91 days to file a notice of restitution, and that will be the sentence of the court. We will shortly be in recess. I would respectfully ask the parties that you remain in your seat. There is a plan by the deputies on allowing people to exit the courtroom, so please remain seated until you are authorized to leave the courtroom based on the direction of the deputies. Deputies, I would respectfully ask that you take this defendant into custody and have him serve the rest of his life in the Department of Corrections. We are in recess.
Please rise.